Over the past couple of months, I've been listening to the messages here with a particular interest because a lot of people have mentioned trust in God. Carol did in her message, Mark did, Gwen did, and it seems to be a recurring sort of theme, and this is the theme that the Lord's placed on my heart. So I'd just like to share some thoughts with you this morning. You know, what is trust? Trust is confidence. It's confidence in something or someone. Confidence in maybe a person's integrity, in their friendship, that they won't let you down, that they keep their word, and their promises, that they keep their promises. You can rely on that person through thick and thin. But have you heard the saying that you can count on one hand how many people you can really trust through life? Why so few? Well, it's because people let us down, don't they? And people you thought you could really trust often let you down, and it hurts. And that's why we're cautious about trusting people, because of past experiences. But you know, the Bible tells us in Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart. In other words, don't hold back. It's fine. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In other words, don't try to work everything out and try to fix everything yourself. But putting our trust in God is an action. When God's telling us to do things, he says, put your trust in him. You have to do it. It's a decision that you make and then you do it. It's an action. But trusting someone is dependent on what we know about the character of that person that we're going to trust. And the Bible tells us over and over again that our God is faithful, never lies, never changes. He loves each one of us deeply. He's good. He's holy. He's kind. He keeps his promises. He never fails. And he's just. It should be easier to put our trust in someone that we believe loves us. And not only that, but he has the power to help us in all circumstances. And he wants to help us in all circumstances. As long as we put our trust in God and believe that he's working in our lives, he will reveal the evidence of his work at the right time. Have you ever heard the term, the hidden hand of God? I was reading a book and saw this, and the hidden hand of God. Let me explain. Have you experienced times in your life when things happen, often completely out of the blue, and you don't know why? Then as time goes on, circumstances develop and change, and only at the end of that experience, when you look back, can you see God's hand in it? His timing. You know, those coincidences, they're all the hidden hand of God. To make this clearer, I'd like us to spend the next 15 minutes or so looking at the life of Joseph in Genesis. And as we look together, there are two themes that I'd like to point out to you, but for you to look for as well. The first one is Joseph putting his trust in God in all circumstances. And the second one is the hidden hand of God in Joseph's life. Well, to read about Joseph, it's looking at Genesis 37. And I'll just recap a little bit about his background. Well, Joseph's parents were Jacob and Rachel, and they all lived in Canaan. Joseph had 10 older brothers and 1 younger brother. The family were herdsmen, and they were a highly favoured family, prosperous as beneficiaries of Abraham's covenant with God. Abraham was Joseph's great-grandfather. But we need to just understand that God had made a covenant promise, a binding promise, full commitment promise to Abraham and his descendants. In Genesis 12, God said, this is to Abraham, I will protect you. I will give you land, the promised land of Canaan. I will bless you and your descendants, Joseph, multiply and make them a great nation. The other part of the promise, through Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and his descendants, the promised Messiah will come. And finally, I will never leave you. And Joseph was raised to know and love God. He knew about this covenant promise, and he knew it was for him, as he was a direct descendant of Abraham. Well, Joseph's father was Jacob, and he had many sons, but he had a favourite. And the favourite one, we shouldn't have favourites really, should we? But the favourite one was Joseph. And Jacob made a very colourful, beautiful coat for Joseph to wear to show everyone that it was a sign of Jacob's favour, that he favoured him. He was his favourite. We know it as the coat of many colours, don't we? Well, Joseph's brothers knew that he was the favourite, and they hated him for it. The other thing was that Joseph had dreams, and he could interpret dreams. And he told his brothers about it. So you can just imagine, can't you? Hey, you lot, I've had a dream. And the dream is that we were all in the fields and we were binding our sheaves of grain. And suddenly my sheaf rose up upright and all your sheaves bowed down to it. I bet that went down well. The second dream, I've had another dream. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars were all bowing down to me. His brothers asked him, do you intend to reign over us? Do you think you're going to rule us? And his brothers hated him more and more. They were jealous of him. When Joseph was 17, his father Jacob told him to go to the fields to see his brothers. They were watching all the animals grazing and to check that everything was okay. So off Joseph goes in his colourful coat. Off he goes. And they see him coming in the distance. And they're so cross with him. And they decide to kill him. But just then, a caravan group of Midianite merchants passed that way. And the brothers took Joseph's coat off him and they sold him to the merchants for 20 silver coins to be their slave. And the merchants then took him to Egypt. So you have a 17-year-old Joseph, the favourite son of Jacob, everything going for him. But now he's hated by his brothers, he's a slave, miles away from home and family, with strangers. He must have been terrified. Joseph must have asked, why is this happening? How is this happening? And have you ever asked that question? When suddenly, with no warning, things change. Difficult and anxious times come, don't they, when we least expect them. Have you ever been in a situation that you've no control over? We don't like it. Whatever you do to try and fix things, to solve the problem, it doesn't work. Our anxiety and our stress levels increase. In 2 Corinthians 12, we read about Paul. He had a significant health problem that he said tormented him, and he pleaded with the Lord to remove it. But the reply was this: my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in your weakness. God is right there in those difficult times. He is in control. His hidden hand is working, and we can trust God because his promises are always there for us to claim. His promises to hold us and to strengthen us even through the worst times. Philippians 4 verse 6 says this: don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for what he has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything that we can understand. Romans 8 verse 28 says this: and we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. In Isaiah 43 verse 2, when you go through deep waters, I will be with you. When you go through rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. For I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Saviour. How deep is your trust? And that's what I've been challenged with. How deep is your trust in times like this? What's your limit? God's promises are there for us to claim and take hold of. He is faithful and he doesn't lie, and he never leaves us. Let's go back and look at Joseph. In his dire situation, he claimed that covenant promise that God gave to his great-grandfather and to his descendants. He trusted God to fulfill his promise, even though he had absolutely no control over what was happening to him. What happens to him next? Well, the Midianite merchants took Joseph to Egypt and they sold him into slavery to a man named Potiphar. From favoured, privileged son to slave. Potiphar was a general in the palace army. He was in charge of the palace army. And I'd just like to read to you from Genesis 39. So this is Joseph as a slave to Potiphar. But the Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favour in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything that Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food that he ate. In Potiphar's house, Joseph demonstrated remarkable character and competence. He soon became overseer of the entire household. Was this the hidden hand of God? He proved that our circumstances do not define our character. They reveal it. Things are going well. Joseph is Potiphar's right-hand man until Potiphar's wife made repeated advances towards him. Joseph rejected her advances, saying, "How can I sin against God?" But this cost him dearly, and Joseph ends up in prison. Potiphar's wife accuses him of assault, a total lie. He did no such thing, but Joseph ends up in prison. How do you react when you're accused of doing something that you never did? A lie? Well, it hurts, doesn't it? It's unfair. And Joseph had served Potiphar for about 11 years without putting a foot wrong. Someone that you trust can let you down. I've been reading a book by Joyce Meyer, and it's called Unshakable Trust. And she says that when she's in a situation where someone's let her down badly, or she's unfairly accused of something, or she's in a situation that she feels she's got no control over, she prays this prayer: "Lord, I trust you to take care of this situation. And if there's anything that I need to do, show me what it is." In other words, handing the situation completely over to God. Our Heavenly Father is a just God, and he will deal with injustices. He's not only a deliverer, he's a strengthener. If he doesn't give us deliverance straight away, he will strengthen you if you're willing to be patient and continue to trust him for the right thing at the right time. Psalm 138 verse 3 says this: "In the day when I called, you answered. You answered me, and you strengthened me with strength in my inner self." You know, Joseph spent at least 2 years in prison. I'd like to read to you what happened to him in prison. Genesis 39. "But the Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him his faithful love. And the Lord made Joseph a favourite with the prison warden. Before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. The warden had no more worries because Joseph took care of everything. The Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed." The prison years might have seemed like wasted time, but they were actually preparing Joseph for his future role. His God-given gift of interpreting dreams was now called on by his fellow prisoners. A butler and a baker had dreams, and Joseph interpreted those dreams for them, and what Joseph foretold happened. It's fascinating to see how God's timing rarely aligns with our expectations. Another 2 years passed before Pharaoh's dreams of 7 fat and 7 lean cows followed by 7 full ears of grain and 7 thin heads of grain, were interpreted by Joseph. The interpretation was given to Joseph by God, and it was that there would be 7 years of plenty food and 7 years of severe famine. But Joseph also presented a plan of action to Pharaoh, how he could prepare for this forthcoming famine. And in Genesis 41, we read this. Joseph said to Pharaoh, "Have them gather all the food produced in the good years that are just ahead. Bring it to Pharaoh's storehouses, store it away and guard it so that there will be food in the cities. That way there'll be enough to eat when the 7 years of famine come to the land of Egypt. Otherwise, this famine will destroy the land." During the waiting period, Joseph continued serving faithfully, unaware that each day was bringing him closer to the fulfillment of God's plan for him. The extraordinary twists and turns in Joseph's story remind us that God's timing is everything, and everything's in God's hands. Whether when he was betrayed by his brothers, sold as a slave, in Potiphar's house, or in prison, each stage was necessary preparation for Joseph's ultimate purpose, which was to save a whole nation from destruction by famine. Genesis 41 tells us this. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has revealed the meaning of the dreams to you, clearly no one else is as intelligent or wise as you are. You will be in charge of my court, and all my people will take orders from you. Only I, sitting on my throne, will have a rank higher than yours." Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I hereby put you in charge of the entire land of Egypt." Do you see the hidden hand of God behind the scenes? God had a plan for Joseph, from a cocky young lad with his coat of many colours to a slave running a general's household, to running a prison, to interpreting dreams, to providing a plan of action, to provide food for a nation that would surely starve to death, to governor of Egypt. When life was unpredictable, Joseph held tight to his faith and put his trust in God. The hardships in his life are what moulded his trust. Romans 8, verse 28 says this, "And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose." I'm sure Joseph did not welcome his trials. We don't welcome our trials. But we can place all circumstances in God's hand and trust whatever comes is in his control. You might be wondering what happened to Joseph and his parents and his brothers. Well, read Genesis 42 for the complete picture. But basically, Jacob sent Joseph's brothers to Egypt to buy food because they had none. The brothers go to Joseph, they buy grain, and they bow before him. Remember the dreams at the beginning? Joseph recognised them. He knew who they were. But they didn't realise that this was the brother that they'd sold into slavery. There are twists and turns again in the story, but Joseph forgives his brothers and he sends food home for them. And he says this: "Do not be distressed. Don't be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." Joseph, Jacob, and the brothers are reunited, and they all live together in Egypt, and Joseph provides for them. Joseph also marries and has 2 sons. So in conclusion, ultimately, God's plan involving Joseph ensured that the covenant promise with Abraham was upheld. If Joseph was not sold as a slave and ended up as governor of Egypt, the whole family would most likely have perished because of the famine back in Canaan, along with the oath made to Abraham. Can you see God's hidden hand along the way? Can you see why Joseph absolutely trusted God through the twists and turns in his life? Can you see how God had a purpose and a plan for Joseph's life? Can you see how God prepared Joseph along the way so that he was able and ready to take on this massive role of saving a whole nation from starvation? And can you see that God's promises do not fail? To Abraham and his descendants, and to me and you who trust him. Psalm 37 says, "Commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will do this."